But let's get into it, man. Episode number, what are we at? I
Let's
can't
do
I
this,
can't
bro.
count anymore. I think we got is episode 5
I
published,
think
but
5.
yeah,
Yeah,
5
cool.
published, 2 ghost episodes. I'm gonna keep it rolling. Let's kick it off with the intro. This is the Jiu Jitsu Underdogs podcast. It's the podcast where two ordinary guys are documenting their day to day, trying to do something a little extraordinary within the Jiu Jitsu community. You got myself, Mark Sharma. I am the founder of Nation Athletics, a Jiu Jitsu apparel brand, bootstrapped all the way, started from scratch during the pandemic, scrappy from start to finish, so a true underdog. And then you got my handsome co-host, Mr. John Romero. You could go ahead and introduce yourself, my man.
It's your boy Jay Romes, John Romero, head coach of 2 jiu-jitsu programs, sponsored Nations Athletic athlete, as well as very active competitor here on the East Coast, Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, all the surrounding areas, PA, all those cool places. Yeah, to answer, we got about 93 plays in our last 30 days. So let's go. Almost at that
Shit.
100.
Let's get to triple digits this episode.
Well, we're getting there, bro. I think episode 1 was killing it so far at 51, and the blue belt trap is killing it at 41.
I feel like with the
So let's
blue belt
go.
trap, that was a little the title and the tile slide. I felt bad because I was like, it's a little bit clickbaity. Do you know what I mean? Because it wasn't necessarily about the blue belt trap that we were talking about, but it was in that vein.
I mean, close. I mean, it was not like it wasn't relatable to that whole the subject. I mean, I thought it was because it's true. There is a blue belt trap. But for this one, our topic of today's what injuries, taking it back, what advice we're giving ourselves if we were white belts, right? This is where how we're taking it this episode.
Yeah, so basically, I had a random thought in the shower, and I was like, "Man, I've put in 9 years into jujitsu, maybe 5 years into a jujitsu business. So, I got some miles under my belt, and I was like, what would I tell like little baby Mark? I mean, I started this late, so early days Mark wasn't necessarily a baby. He still had a full head of hair on his chest, less so on his head. But what would even more bald Mark tell slightly less bald Mark?
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I mean, as far as jujitsu injuries, I think at white belt, I think a lot of us, even now as we, get higher in belt, I think we have a bad habit of ignoring injuries. I would say it's the same with, I mean, again, I just started my business, but I would say with business wise, right? You can't necessarily, obviously, unless you get injured at work, but I guess another word for injury is like little things that may be a bad shipment, right? Or I know me and you talked it privately off screen about, backed up products, right? So for example, that can be considered a business injury, correct? Right? If like something that you constantly ignore, right? You just keep trying to push more and more different products. That's something that can affect you in the long run, correct?
Yeah, so the way I look at it is basically, we're talking metaphorically here, biggest thing I'd say to my white belt jujitsu self is, yeah, don't ignore the injuries because they build up over time. And like, I don't care what anyone says, you can rehab them, you can have surgery, but if you take a kind of serious injury, like my white belt, I was basically like, typical early days, you just want to be tough. So you're trying to like just grind everything out and you don't want to tap to submissions if you don't feel like they're fully locked in, so you're like eating a bunch of stuff, and I was eating a neck crank. um Basically felt like a pop on my neck, ended up like herniating my disc, got like a compressed nerve. Over the years it kind of ground down the bone and ended up having to have a neck fusion. And I think the biggest lesson over the years looking back that I would sort of give to my white belt self is, you don't have to be tough and eat those things. It's okay to tap. um so like on a business side, the equivalent is sort of like you are a new business and you have very, very little room for error. So, or if anything looks like it's kind of not panning out, act on it right away. So for me, I wasted so much money on like ads. I make an ad, I throw it into the account, I think, oh, this is a winner. Do you know what I mean? And then it doesn't quite perform on day one. Day two, it gets like okay results. Day three, okay again. And you're sold on it, right? So you're convinced that this is going to be the one. So you're like, I've invested time. Maybe I spent a bunch of money producing the ad. So you got like a sunken cost involved with it. And then you kind of, it's essentially a niggling injury on the business because it's not performing, it's not pulling its weight. But because you put time and effort into it, you think, oh, I just got to give it time. I got to give it time. And then you end up looking back over a week, a month, a quarter, and you're like, damn, man, I've wasted like thousands of dollars on this thing. Like with jiu-jitsu, you get those niggling injuries, you got to take care of them. You got to get the proper recovery. You got to get the rest. You got to get the rehab. Same with your business. If something isn't working, you got to jump on it right away, try and analyze what the problem is, see why it's not working, test as well. So, okay, the ad isn't working. What do I need to do differently? Maybe it's the influencer that I'm using. Like, do I need a different one? Should I go more for a humor angle versus a serious angle? And get to the root of the problem and fix it quick.
Yeah, because I mean, just to kind of double down on the injury, like I remember hurting my rib. One of the things my coaches told me was like, or he was a new coach at the time. He was just like, you'd rather be gone for 2 weeks than 2 months. And that's something that really stuck with me because again, if continue to ignore these injuries, yeah, you may be feeling good, which I remember when I hurt my rib, I think I tore the cartilage on my left side. So I was good for about a few weeks and I was like, oh, maybe I can get back into training. And I was good for like a week and a half. I didn't get hurt or nothing. And then I don't know, I couldn't help but think that like a whole almost 2 weeks later, I tore the cartilage on my other side. So now I was legit gone for like 2.5, almost 3 months, just no jujitsu, going to class, watching, hating life because I was ignoring that little injury rather than just resting up. So I could agree with what you're saying. Again, I haven't had that situation yet as far as business, but I know as far as jujitsu, that's definitely a problem. A challenge that even I still kind of go through. Think especially as active as you come, even when you have like, and I hate to say, I was that guy once or a few times where I would have maybe a little staph infection and fucking say nothing, come to class and train. Next thing you know, it's like, damn, so and so is out of class for 2 weeks because he caught
I
something. And
don't
it's just
I
like,
don't
damn.
I don't care what anybody says. Every single person I know is that guy. We all pretend like we're not. No, Drew's been straight up with me, training with Drew. He's like, yo, I got a little infection. If you want to roll with me, it's on you. And I'm like, fuck it. I need to get the training in. I know I've had the same. I'm like, if I just tape it hard enough, people ain't gonna notice.
If I
Now
wear
I'm
this,
pretty good with it though. I'll be honest with you. I'll be upfront with people. And I kind of figured out a little routine that kind of gets rid of the infection pretty quick so I can still stay training. I guess the controversial issue here around injuries is like balancing being tough because obviously we're in a combat sport. You have to have a certain amount of mental grit, a certain amount of toughness, and you can't be like to a degree you can't be a delicate dandelion. You know what I mean? You gotta kind of eat a little, excuse my frankness, but you gotta eat a little shit. You gotta kind of eat a few submissions, or like if you're in striking, you got to eat a few jabs to the nose and get banged up a little bit. But knowing where the difference between being tough and kind of just reckless is, I think, like clear example. What was the clip that went viral a while back? It was like I think it was one FC. Who was it? Mikey. He basically had that guy's leg just like all twisted up, and the guy was just eating the heel hook, and it was like his knee was pointed this way, his toe was pointed the other way, and everyone was like, "Oh, that guy's like he thugged it out, man. He's tough. He's tough. He's tough." And I'm like, "Is he though? Like, is he just stupid?
like,
Like,
is he though, or is he just, he's just over it?
right? Obviously, I'm not gonna tell him to
Yeah,
his
because
face
then
he's
guess
stupid
what?
because
Like
he's
now you
reckless.
gotta watch. Now you got that's the funny thing, right? Because now it's like, all right, damn, now what, right? And that's the worst part. Sometimes just sitting there watching, not being able to be in the room with the guys or the girls or whoever is the worst part about injuries. I mean, that's where like we come to our next subject, training smart, not just hard, right? Like goes back to our last subject. If you're injured, maybe take a step back. Well, we say, oh, let's work around it. But it's just like, you're not really working around it. You're just overcompensating in one spot, right? So if your left leg hurts, you're going to use more of your right leg, but now your right leg is going to be tired as hell by the time your left leg feels better. So like you're going to always have some sort of problem. What would you say for you? Because obviously you've been in the game a little longer than me or a lot longer than me because, black belt. What would you say is like some tips and tricks for someone who should be focused on training smart, not just hard? Like maybe this guy trains every day, active competitor 2, 3 times a day, shows up every day, maybe no rest days. What would you say is a good example for someone to start training smart, training hard? And then maybe I'll
I
give
mean,
my 2 cents.
funnily enough, I actually learned it from my first Muay Thai coach because we would train 6 days a week, and each session would be like 2 hours, sometimes twice a day. But none of the training sessions were the same. So, like maybe in the morning we wake up, we do cardio. So you might do a 3 mile run, some sprints. That's it. It's 30 minutes of work. And then you got the whole day to recover. Then you come to the evening class, and it's maybe a bit more technical. and you're working techniques with some light sparring. But he had a pretty strict rule where like we would only hard spar twice a week. That was it. Because he knew he had to like keep us all in that sort of sweet spot where we're training and constantly developing and constantly pushing ourselves, but we're not like overworking the body to where our performance will drop. You're always kind of fresh, even though you're training a lot. And I forget, was Joe Rogan show where the guy was like talking about pull-ups, and he's like, you shouldn't actually do pull-ups to failure. You should just do like 80%, and then you can do them every day. So after a week, a month, your volume of work is way more versus the person that just went to failure every day. And then the next day their performance sucked because they were, their bodies were sore, they were fatigued, and they didn't get the recovery they needed because they trained super hard the night before. That's not to say you can't train super hard the night before, because we would have like real scraps and wars in the gym, and like we would do 10, 15 rounds sessions, and like, all bloodied up, banged up afterwards. But then the next day would be a super light day. So you're still training and you're still moving your body and you're still developing your skills, but you're never at that point where you're just like, man, my body is fatigued. And I feel, I'm 45. So like if I get out of bed wrong, that's it. Like I'm out for a week. Do you know what I mean? So now more
Yeah,
than
bro,
ever,
you
I
don't
have
look
to
a
be
day over
intentional.
43, bro. Yeah?
Bro, I'm about to be 46. It's crazy. But, my goals are different now because I'm older. So I want to stay on the mats till I'm 50, 60 plus. Do you know what I mean? So I'm taking this point training smart super, super seriously. And also I think you just don't get good from training tough. Like you need to do it. I think there's a place for it. But like if I'm just going hard and like muscling my way out of techniques or into techniques, I'm not actually getting any better. Whereas you get better by kind of putting yourself in those bad spots and like processing the situation and dissecting it. And it's kind of the same with business. Like I used to get it in my old corporate jobs. Everyone would brag about, oh, I put in 70 hours this week, da, 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 and it was like a badge of honor. And I'm like, but doesn't that just mean that your business is inefficient? It's like the whole thing should be that you can accomplish the goals and the results in as short amount of time. And I always say this, like the best hires are the lazy people that have a super strong work ethic, because they don't want to do a bad job because they got the work ethic, but they don't want to work hard. So they're going to find the most efficient route to getting the job done. And it's kind of like you got to think of training the same way.
I can agree because I know, for example, me, right? I was using myself as an example. I train maybe lately the last 2 weeks, and maybe because I'm not training all too smart, where like I'm just been mentally, physically a little burnt out. Hence why I'm going on vacation this week. But yeah, I can agree. If you're overdoing it and you're not doing anything to kind of take care of yourself, also, sometimes it's what you're doing off the mat, like sleep. Never really noticed how sleep plays into this. I mean, I'm 36 now, turned 36 at the end of the month. So, like just like you, I do have to kind of like, I want to last long out here on the mat, of course, what I'm talking about. I want to be able to,
Pause.
go at my 40s and my 50s. But yeah, I had to do a little pause there. But I have to pay attention to like supplements, right? Like, wow, I don't mean to be a cheap plug here, but Hollow Labs, right? It just so happened to be on my computer table. But this is like, damn, I didn't close it all the way. But this is my recovery, right? After a hard training, I'll take some electrolytes, things of that nature. So I'm getting my hydration in, and I can't afford to go and train 2 days, 2 times a day if possible. I mean, I gotta, again, listen to my body. If my body's feeling like how it's been feeling the last week, I need to realize, like, yeah, maybe I have a match coming up, maybe I have whatever coming up, but my body and mind is what's gonna actually get me to the point where my arm is being raised at the end of the day. Unfortunately, we're all not built like Ronnie Rodriguez. we gotta
Right.
we gotta go that extra mile out here to get right.
Right,
But
right,
but
right.
yeah, man, that I think I like what you said though, is for sure. Like you gotta make those decisions, and you can't just go balls to the wall all the time.
Yeah.
Which then takes us to our next topic about recovery. I started dedicating, if I don't train, which is like my day off, I still do a session, which is like recovery. Right, I'll link up with my teammate Jimmy. We'll go to the class and we'll do cryo, right? There's a cryo, I'm blessed to have a little cryo freezer, whatever it is, at the gym. So I do 3 minutes every day. If I'm not training, like I try to do every day after my first session. But if I can't make it every day, I have at least one day a week where I do 3 minutes in a cryo. I'll do 20 to almost 30 minutes in a sauna, and then I'm doing like compressions the spots that hurts after. So it's just like I have a whole hour and some change in the gym, not doing anything physical, but just more like recovering my body. Hence what I feel like since adding that, because it's been almost a year of me doing that, that's why I'm able to go compete every other weekend, things of that nature, because I do the stuff that you really don't see behind in front of the camera. Because obviously we all post our training, but you don't see all the boring stuff, which is stuff like that, recovery supplements
Right.
and just recovery sessions. Yeah. I feel like I went on a tangent there, but it's just like this recovery to me is super important.
No, I think it's a good point because, like you say, that's the kind of boring work that people don't see. Everyone wants to see the highlight reel, but no one wants to. Like everyone's posting, the running apps. They post their stats, but no one posts their sleep stats. Do you know what I mean? Like, all right, I got 8 solid hours of quality sleep today. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
no,
I'll be a hater if I see someone with solid 8 hours of sleep, I'll be a hater. He says something along the lines that recovery is important. So with that being said, I need y'all to stop what you're doing. Ignore this mess that I have going on. I need y'all to stop what you're doing, and I need you to go to hololabs.com. Hololabs.com, I'm an official sponsor under Hololabs. I'm doing a horrible job pushing it on Instagram, but I'm gonna do a better job now. Hololabs.com, promo code JRooms, get you some electrolytes. This one's Hydrate. This is my favorite one. Anytime I have a hard session, it's the first thing I go to. You know, has a lot of calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, Himalayan pink salt, and a bunch of other shit that's gonna help you recover. Let's go. I gotta close this thing, but I got powder going all over the place. But here's what I was gonna say. Hold on, someone just challenged me in chest. But yeah, man, recovery is super important. If you can find a gym, if you are in the Paramus, New Jersey area, I recommend going to Bergen County. But if you can find a gym in the area that has a recovery session or has a cryo, I def recommend doing it. All you need is about 3-minute sessions, and that will just whatever inflammations and things of that nature, any type of inflammation and things of that nature, it literally just goes away. So def recommend giving that a shot and yeah, see how that feels on your body.
yo,
Yo,
man, that is annoying.
I just did a whole promo for HoloLabs, but you look smoother now. I don't know.
Uh,
I didn't know what to say. I was just like, you know what? Since we're on the topic,
right.
if you
Yeah.
can get that cut when you do the edit, just send it my way.
Yeah, yeah, I got you. Thankfully, I'm in the same recording, so I should be able to splice these two together.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, whatever you did is better.
Technical issues. We got a storm down here in Atlanta, so there's like thunder and whatnot, and I guess my Wi-Fi is kind of acting up. But we are back. We are
Yeah,
back, and we were talking.
we were talking. It's not something I'll take the pain away altogether, like right away, like that. It's something I continuously do, but it's good for pain management. I even work with a guy here in Jersey. He's a wellness guy. I haven't seen him in a while. He just had a baby, but he does mobile cryo, mobile cryo. So rather than the whole freezer, he has one that just isolates on the spot. So like imagine the whole freezer, but like in a little vacuum. So if like you're like,
Wow.
hey Mark, my shoulder hurts. You have this little vacuum thing, and you can just literally just put it on my shoulder for like however long, and then the pain will go away, which is crazy. The pain does go away.
So what I was going to ask you, like, what are your, let's say, top 2 to 4 recovery hacks? I got like a couple that I use, nothing crazy. And then also like how, because there's so many new fads and trends coming and going. How do you pick like which ones actually work?
Yeah, so for me was I started going to a gym on Sundays that has a lot of high quality, high level recovery. So like red infrared saunas, sauna I love a lot. Cold plunges is also dope. So I would say those two back and forth. So if I can do like let's just say 15 minutes in the sauna and then I take a 3-minute break, but that 3-minute break, I'm in the cold plunge. And then the cold plunge, jump right back in the sauna, kind of like a on and off type of deal. But like one of my favorite things is when I have the leg shin splints, I use those compression sleeves on my legs. And then I blast TRT out the ass into my ass. And then I just feel fucking great.
You be looking jack, bro. I'm like, is this guy on TRT? I don't know. It's like,
Nah,
yeah.
nah. Nah, it's just that as much as I want to, I'm unfortunately broke right now, so I can't even afford that.
I
But like
mean,
I said,
yeah, that's the
since I
whack
work
thing.
at a gym, it kind of helps that that's possibly why I'm brolic out here. But
Do you know the science behind the recoveries? Because I kind of know little bits and pieces, and it seems to be essentially about getting blood flow back to the not damage, but like basically you train, which like puts stress on your muscle tissues and kind of breaks them up a little bit, get lactic acid in there, and it kind of like gets it all banged up. And then you need to get the blood flow in, which kind of takes the lactic acid, pushes it out, and puts oxygen back in, right?
Yeah, I that's pretty much all I know too.
Okay.
I
We
was
we
just
got we
told
gotta
that,
get
yo,
some
if you
on this show. We gotta get some
yo, bro, if you're
check.
in pain, jump in that bitch, bro, and I'm just like, "Alright, bet," and then I just I just been doing it every session I
Right.
can, especially like
Because
I said. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say because for me, I have an autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis, which basically puts a lot of inflammation in my joints. It was how I ended up with like the hip replacement and blah blah blah, all that stuff. What I found helped me a lot was that like going in the sauna and better recovery. And as soon as I started taking care of that, the inflammation in my body went way down. I was able to like get off because for rheumatoid arthritis, they give you some like super strong drugs that just like they're basically a part of like chemo drugs and they make you feel shitty and they destroy your liver. So I was like, I don't
Yeah.
want to live like this because I got diagnosed with it young. So I started focusing more on recovery and like working on ways to bring inflammation down in my body naturally so that I could get off the meds and stay training. And one of the big things I found was that hot, cold sauna and cold plunges that helped a lot. Sleep, diet as well is a big thing. Like
Yes,
steering
huge.
away from inflammatory foods. So anything that's like a refined carbohydrate, so like white breads, sugars, that kind of thing, limit that. Have more unrefined carbohydrates, so like oatmeal, brown rice, because it's not just like dumping a ton of energy, which causes a massive blood sugar spike, which can then cause more inflammation in your body. And once I started taking care of those things, I noticed my recovery was better, my training was better, my rheumatoid arthritis was kind of less active. I was able to get into remission. But one of the big things that I started doing was, and it's like dumb simple, taking magnesium supplements at bedtime. Um, because it like, man, I feel high on them. I don't know if I'm like overly sensitive to it, but once you take magnesium, it's like if you've ever had an Epsom salt bath and you come out feeling like a little bit high, do that just before bed and you'll get like real good sleep.
Yeah, I'm not consistent with it. One of these pills up here is magnesium. Oh, they're there somewhere on top of
Yeah,
that Gatorade. I'm telling you, this room's a mess, guys. Don't judge me. I'm all over the place. My life is crazy right now. But one of these pills is both joint and magnesium. So I'm not really as consistent as I want to with the magnesium, which I was told does help you get some good ass sleep.
it does. I recommend it.
But yeah, I haven't had that high feeling yet, but when I do, I will definitely let you know.
All right. Well, you smoke, so like I don't really smoke.
Oh.
It's probably you're like, what's this guy talking about? This is nothing. You and Drew, yeah, feel that. Like you'd have to take the whole freaking ball to feel it. Um, but yeah,
I think
so
I think one of the things too though, with recovery too, like let's just say you don't wanna sit still, maybe just drill, right?
yeah,
Again, like, let's just say there's a position you can't or a bad position you could be put in. For example, if you're hurt up top, right? Why not practice legs? Start off in a bad leg spot. Legs is getting better. Legs are getting more and more. What's the word I want to look for? Like that. Everyone keeps going to it no matter what. Even if you're bad, like I kind of wish if I could tell my white belt self something now is like double down on the legs. Like
yeah.
that's something I wish that I just wasn't so scared of at white that I feel like I would be so much better now if I just wasn't so scared of you. I feel like my first ankle lock caught me so shitty that I remember all throughout white and blue, I'm just like, fuck this, bro. I don't want anything to do with this.
Funny you say that because I started playing legs because when I first started training with Drew, he was heavy on legs and he basically used me as his like punching bags. So I was like a blue belt, he was brown or maybe even black belt, trying to work his legs and like he would just spam them on me and just wreck me with them. But he did it because he knew I had neck issues. So I was like, look, I can't really do anything shoulders because I had like pinched nerves, so like my shoulders were all jacked up. So he's like, "All right, cool, this is perfect. I'm trying to work legs." So we just basically did a year of legs pretty much straight, and that's all I could do. And it was like even at its worst with my neck, like because it pinches the nerve that runs all the way down your arm, you lose grip strength. So like I couldn't even squeeze and finish a rear naked choke because my shoulders were so jacked up. Whereas a heel hook is more like you get a bite on the heel, you put your weight on it, pin the foot, and it's just bridging with your hips. So you don't actually really need much kind of upper body strength. So one of the, like you said about getting injured, like one of the kind of blessings I had about jacking my neck up was so bad was that I switched all to legs for a year, and now I'm like pretty comfortable and I enjoy them. I'm not the best by a long way, but like it's definitely one of the stronger parts of my game because I did get that injury And instead of just being like, all right, I'm gonna do nothing, I was like, okay, what can I do? Which kind of like part of the recovery, but sort of leading on to the next point is, I would definitely tell my white belt self to stop avoiding bad positions and like trying to win every round. And I think like putting yourself into those positions that are your weaker areas, not only does it improve your game, but it also helps stop the burnout because you're constantly being forced to deal with new problems. And I've been hitting it a bit lately with the burnout. I was like, man, I'm like not really seeing much growth or improvement. I'm just banging my head against a brick wall. But then the minute I was like, okay, let me try some new stuff. So I started going into new positions and I was like, all right, I'm good with legs, but like not so great with the back or mount, especially if it's a bigger, stronger dude. So let me just go into the fire, pick the biggest guy in the room and say, just put me in mount and get on my back like nonstop for the
Yeah.
next like 3 rounds. That's all I'm doing. And I actually started loving it. It was like super fun because I'm like, one, there's no pressure because you're like, all right, this guy's bigger than me. It's my worst position. So if he subs me 100 times in a round, who cares? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then at two, you're like, okay, I'm gonna try some like crazy stuff and just start experimenting. Like, what happens if I bring the arm over here or over here? If I make this grip versus this grip, and then you start enjoying the rounds more because you're like actually problem solving and you're actually learning jiu-jitsu. You're not just like either spamming your favorite attack or just like getting smashed because you're just trying to like force positions that aren't there. And then I would say kind of the same is true with business, like business is so brutal and unforgiving. There's not like a part of it you can ignore and just hope to get by and succeed. Like I had no idea how to I was good with numbers, but I wasn't good with creative. And modern day businesses live and die on their creative. So I was like, all right, I got to do creative for the next year. That's all I'm focusing on. So, or I got to figure out a solution to get good creative, even if I'm not doing it. And obviously, you can't really do that with jujitsu, but in business, one of the things I'm doing is like, I'm not actually looking for sponsored athletes anymore because I'm like, that's great. And like I think we spoke about this on one of the earlier episodes, it's great, having medal winners as sponsored athletes, but really and truly, someone winning a medal wearing your gear and standing on a podium doesn't necessarily help you move units. Whereas some blue belt with a couple thousand followers making dope content that goes viral and like you can push through your ad account and converts at a super high rate, that's valuable to a business. And actually I would pay for that versus like $1,000 contract with a superstar BJJ athlete that maybe posts once a week. I'd rather give that blue belt like a couple $100 a video if I know it's going to convert as an ad. So anyway,
I can I can attest to that.
right, exactly. This is why we're here. And this is kind of one of the things I wanted to do with Nation too, is like not just like, oh, okay, here we go, another showy role that just like has all the top athletes, spends a bunch of money on sponsored affiliates, and it
It
is what
was
it is,
like
like blah
you
blah
like
blah. We've
good
seen that
looking
before.
mid athletes who can get you views.
Right. Jiu-jitsu, the brand for the unathletic jiu-jitsu player. If you suck and have never won a trophy, we'll take you. Don't worry.
Nations Athletic, home of the second placers.
Right, right, right. We're not the B team, we're like the C team.
We're the C&a-half team.
Right, right. I mean, you got a founder with like one eye, one hip, and bolts in his neck, and he's 45. So it's fitting, I guess.
Working on techniques you don't work like really do to get you over that hump in your progress from white to brown black. Was there a lot of people in your circle you would say were willing, like I know you mentioned Drew, but were there others that were really willing to share some gems with you, or were there was a lot and you would say in your come up who would just hoard shit? Like I know for me, like right now, obviously I'm seeing people hit this octopus left and right, and it's really pissing me off. Cause it's just like when I was trying to show it, no one really cared to see it, right? Now people are like, they have all this information, they're giving it out there, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But sometimes I kind of want to hoard that info. Maybe I'm being selfish, but what are your opinions on that? Do you feel like don't hoard, like hoard the techniques, don't hoard it, share love, don't gatekeep?
I
What do you say?
kind of, I feel like this is a little bit like old school, new school mindset, because I've been at some old school gyms and like one of them was like, no leg locks. We're not doing leg locks unless you're like purple or brown. So, in a way that's kind of hoarded techniques or keeping them away from the newer students. And I think Like, I understand why they did it because people kept getting injured, but I think that's like going back to what we were talking about before is you got to get to the root cause of the problem. And the root cause of the problem is the type of training we were doing back then was basically like, that old school where you drill a couple of techniques, do a little warm up, and then you just go 45 minutes trying to kill each other. There's no positional
Yeah,
sparring, there's no like eco games, there's no breaking down techniques into concepts rather than just step one, step two, step three. And ultimately, you're doing your students a disservice because, yeah, I understand they were getting injured, but they were getting injured because the training wasn't quite set up right. So they half knew the technique. And all they knew was just if I like squeeze this harder and pull harder, I'm gonna get a tap. But it's like, okay, yeah, you're gonna do that. And then if the person doesn't know to tap in time or recognize the position, they're gonna blow out their knees. The coaches at those gyms were like in a way hoarding the techniques, so they're keeping them back from the students as a means to preserve their income because they kept noticing the students were getting
banged
leaving
up.
because they were injured. But
Yeah,
like I say, that's not addressing the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is the training needs to be set up different to where newer belts can do that safely in an environment where they understand the concepts and they understand like how you get the submission and the braking mechanics. So then when they apply it, they can apply it intelligently and not just rip it. So definitely experience that. I'm more now, I used to be that way, but now I'm like very much more on the new school. I think like, especially in this digital age, it's like you can't hide techniques. Do you know what I mean? It's like you cannot teach them to your student, but all they got to do is have an iPhone with a connection and they've already got access to
yeah,
pretty much every technique in the world. And they're going to be coming in and, seeing whatever happened at the latest fight to win or who's number one, and they're going to be drilling it and
we're
like
gonna try it.
problem solving on
Yeah,
their own. It's like taking on a whole new life of its own. So you can't really hoard technique. I think it's like that old Criante kind of mindset, which again, like, comes from like we have our techniques. We're not going to show them to the rest of the world because we want to go out to tournaments and wreck everyone with these techniques just because they haven't had exposure. But those days are long gone. Do you know what I mean? Now we've got the internet. We've got like all of the moves are on YouTube or like Instagram. You got, like Joseph Chen basically just watched a bunch of instructionals, got good. He didn't really necessarily, I mean, and he has a coach and he trains with coaches and, that definitely helps. But like he got, a good portion of the way just from watching instructionals that he
from
had basically
studying.
free access to.
Yeah, I know, like, the other day, I was teaching a move, and one of my students was like, "Yeah, I saw that, but, like, I saw this on Instagram." And I'm like, "You motherfucker." It's just like yeah, it's like, "Then you teach the move then, bro." Like,
Right,
you go with your Instagram and show the technique.
right.
But, yeah, like, I feel
Look,
like
on
you're
the
right,
flip
though,
side,
I do know go ahead.
I was just gonna say on the flip side, the opposite is also true with my white belt stuff, where I go online and like see all these techniques, and every day it'd be like a new technique instead of figuring out how to pass guard. And I think that's just as detrimental. You can have too little techniques and too many techniques. Because the thing that I've noticed now that's giving me the most value in my training is like, I don't want to say fundamentals because like none of these skills or positions are necessarily like, they can be fundamental, but they're also like very advanced at the same time. Like I joke because when I first started, it was like, okay, straight ankle locks, arm bars, and like very basic submissions. And now I've been in it for years. I'm like, nah, I realize I've been doing it all wrong. I want to go back to like straight ankle lock. So like now I'm on a straight ankle lock kick where I'm like, there's so many little nuances that I had no idea were there. And like, the only reason I think people say that they're fake is because people don't know how to do them properly. So I was like, I want to get good at them because they're kind of like, it's like having a sniper rifle. It's like once you get it, it's like that's it. Do you know what I mean? It comes out super quick, and
Yeah, and
yeah,
if
I
you don't
know
know
you
how
can eat a break
if
on
you don't know
your
how to use it
foot.
properly too, that shit's gonna come back and bite you in the ass. So,
Right,
yeah, you
right,
may know
right.
how to get there, but you still gotta use that information you learned to kinda finish it, you know?
So I'd say to sum up advice to white belt self is like, don't be a technique collector and work on like a different flashy Instagram move every day. Focus on like basic fundamental skills within each position and each technique and understand the concept and kind of the how and the why for a technique. versus like, oh, I just know this move, step one, step two, step three. And then on the flip side, I think, like, I don't think coaches, I don't know. Do you think coaches do that anymore where they kind of hide or hoard techniques and they got that Creante mindset? I haven't seen anyone,
I
but
don't think so anymore, especially like maybe in the beginning when I started, right? Because when I started, I felt like it was kind of old school compared to now. Like almost 4 or 5 years later, 5 years later, I feel like coaches have, for example, one of my coaches, he has a Patreon, so he's just showing our pro sessions, our eco classes, how we run it, games, techniques. Well, not techniques, 'cause he doesn't really drill, but I would say like concepts that he's done throughout the week. So there's that, and then you have again BJJ Fanatics, where it's just like there's literally everything there. Because now, which is crazy, right? People found ways to monopolize their technique and make money from it, and that's why you got to think about it. Jiu-jitsu, there is ways of making money in it. And I know I'm going to feel like I'm going off topic. We're not talking about this. Just kind of got me thinking. But like, there's there's money in technique, right? So if you're showing good technique, people will pay for that. But like I said, people also see that and they're like, you know what, I can make some money off this. So like I said, it's everywhere. So I don't really see people hoarding it, or like people like myself, right? Like I may not be Craig Jones or Gordon Ryan, but I'm posting some technique that I learned that I've been hitting that's working. I'm putting it on my Instagram because I'm a firm believer. Like you may know I can go for it, but it doesn't mean you can stop it. Like, you know what I'm saying? But why not, you know,
yeah,
spread the love?
you got me you got me thinking because I had a conversation with a guy that I reached out to from Instagram. This is like I hit him up and he's interested, he's down to be a guest on this podcast. And when we get
Oh,
him on the
let's
show, I'm
go.
like super excited for this show that we can set up with him. But he's basically working on a new like an AI coach. And when I say AI coach, most people assume, hey, ChatGPT, how do I escape an armbar? And then ChatGPT is going to pull whatever Reddit post from some like opinionated blue belt that's like half baked and maybe full of shit. They think
You're gonna pull a
along.
J. Rome's opinion.
Right. Yeah. Which is kind of, yeah, that's not really that valuable. But what this guy's working on is like, it's an AI model that analyzes video footage and can analyze the movement, the kind of pattern recognition, and kind of like the sequences within around, and basically give you a real time breakdown of your rolling footage. And then off of that, what it could do is kind of have a collective knowledge of all the video footage that's out there and give you like pointed tips on like how you can improve your techniques. Maybe going into a match you could pull video footage from your opponent and tell you like, oh, he's weaker on his left or his right. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know where we're going with this, but I was like, when I was speaking to him today, dude, I was like super excited for it. I was like, this is gonna
Is that the
completely
gentleman you
change.
forwarded the email to me or earlier today?
No, that's another guy. That one's gonna be another good one too. That one's more about like building
As
community
you can
within
see,
jiu-jitsu.
Mark just be talking to dudes all day, guys. Not J.
No,
Rome.
honestly, bro, like I'm excited for this podcast because we got so many
No.
cool guests that we can get on here. And I think we've been doing them ourselves today just to kind of brush off the dust and get into a flow. And I feel like we got a good flow now. So once we get some more guests up in here, it's gonna be a good show. But yeah,
Also,
that's what I was saying.
we'll be back in the podcast studio too, so it won't be this virtual. Know what I mean? So hopefully we can get that finished.
What I was going to say about the techniques is like, I'm really interested to see how AI kind of torpedoes all of this, like the way jujitsu's been doing things. The same way kind of eco came and sort of changed the game. I think AI is going to do the same. It's going to remove a lot of like the need for instructionals or, like, I don't know how BJJ fanatics are going to respond to it. They're going to have to figure something out because I think once you start getting AI models that basically have all of that information on techniques and instructionals, it's all under one thing. The AI is going to be able to do all of that work for you. So essentially, it's going to be your coach, or I would look at it more as like a coach's assistant. And if you think about it, jujitsu's behind in that regard because, like boxing, you will study footage and you'll have your coach will spend hours watching your opponent's footage and breaking down. They'll do it more just from a intuitive way because they've been boxing for a long time, or like American football or soccer. They'll watch video and break down and analyze their opponents to like the micro details. Whereas with jiu-jitsu, it's like, all right, cool, he's a leg locker, so I'm a pass guard or wrestle. Do you know what I mean? And that's like the extent to it. It's not like exactly like how many finishes do they have on the left versus the right? How many finishes are straight ankle locks versus heel hooks? I mean, maybe they are at the top level, but I haven't seen anyone really do that. So anyway, I'm going on a ramble because I'm excited about this topic,
It's
but I
pretty
think
cool.
it's definitely gonna change the technique, hoarding and collecting kind of game.
Yeah. No, I like that. And we are kind of scurrying in almost the last 10 minutes, but I feel like we doubled down a lot on jujitsu today. Do you want to kind of segue into some business or?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many, business tips I'd give to my business white belt self. But, I would say the biggest one that I've learned and I'm feeling recently, and this is kind of jumping ahead from our show notes a little bit, but is working on building your audience from day one. Because I had actually a really tough year last year, and it was like I basically scraped a break even. Do you know what I mean? Wasn't able to pay myself, couldn't really see any growth in the business. It was actually declining year on year, which is like the worst feeling because you're like, man, I put blood, sweat, and tears into this thing, and it's like, last year was down versus the previous, this year is down versus last year. So you're like, am I just kind of spiraling into a abyss of bankruptcy? I don't know, but a lot of that was because I didn't own the audience. I was basically renting it from Instagram and Google. And if for anyone that doesn't know, it's basically like, you push posts out on social media, the algorithm picks it up and amplifies your message and spreads your reach, and then more people have a connection to your, let's say, Instagram profile in this example, and then your Facebook ads can kind of follow up and target all of those people. So you've got really wide reach, and then you've got your ads kind of following that reach, targeting them, pushing conversions back to your website. But what happens when the algorithm changes is all of a sudden you lose that reach. So it's kind of like the well runs dry and you cut off the supply. So now all you've got to rely on is your existing customers, which is cool. But like, no matter how good my rash guards are, you're only really going to buy but so many. So you always need a flow of new customers coming in. So I was totally dependent on the Facebook and Instagram algorithms to bring those new customers in. And once the algorithm changed and like that tap completely dried up, I was basically dead in the water. So now you're like, freak, I got like all this inventory to move, the sales are drying up, I'm selling to my existing customers, but after a while they're all tapped out and I've got new ones, no new ones coming in. So that's basically the kiss of death. If you can't fix that problem, then you're going to go out of business for sure. So what I started to do was figure out ways to own my audience and not have to rely on, Mark Zuckerberg and the algorithms to find me new people. So a lot of that was working on email funnels, email flows. Now I put a lot of focus in, yeah, they might click an ad, but instead of following up with like a sales ad to get like a quick sale off them, I'll follow up with an email subscription ad and be like, oh, hey, we saw you checking us out. If you want to like enter to win a free rash guard, just drop your email in this form. Then I got that email and then I'll follow up with the sales pitch. And then even with the emails, I noticed before it was like, oh, I'm just pushing all these sales emails out and it's not really getting the traction I want. So I'm switching it more to like a conversational vibe. So it's like the same conversations we're having. I'm just typing them up as a real short email and blasting them out to the audience. And I find it gets much more engagement. So you're sort of building a relationship with your audience, and you not only own them because it's your email list, which you own, you're also building a strong connection with them. So it's kind of like you got to go sort of more in depth versus broad. And I think when people start businesses, they listen to all these gurus who are talking about how to, go viral, how to get tons of likes, how to, get massive reach. But that's cool and it definitely works. But you're basically playing a slot machine and you're now working for whatever Facebook's objectives are. And we spoke about this on the last episode. I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but it's definitely an important part of business is figuring out how you can own your audience as quick as possible.
Yeah, I like that because again, I would be the white belt mark in this conversation right now as far as business, right? Because I'm only at JRI 3, which is going down May 23rd at AMA again. But anyway, that audience, I would say it's true because now I know what the people like, right? So I want to continue to bring that. And obviously, it's a little different. I'm not selling merch, right? But I need to make sure that my shows are exciting because I've seen these shows, right? I've seen these shows that I've been to as a competitor. Obviously I don't really care about the crowd. I just care more about my performance, but I doesn't mean I don't have a pair of eyes. I can see some of these shows losing its audience, I guess you could say. And that's what I love about JRI, and that's what I love about Chronic too. I mean, I know I own my own promotion that I run, but this is why I love working with Chronic too, because sometimes our gaps are a little too big in between events, but because of that, people come back, right? It's not a show that you see every month. And then, you start seeing these shows. Maybe they have one show that's knocked out the park because they have a few guys from their school coming to compete on it. But, for example, me and Chronic, we're going to different places. We're going to different locations. And the reason why people come to our events is because we are different. We're not just there to this cash cow. Like, we're there to provide a service that makes people, and want to come back. Makes sponsors and vendors want to come back. And I feel like for me, if I can, I guess, give my pre-white belt self whatever color is before white is, focus on making the people, not just the audience who are spending the money, but the people who are, no, yeah, not just the people spending the money to watch, but the people who are spending the money to grow your brand or grow your show. Make sure they're having a good time too. Because if they're having a good time, they're either making money or making connections, then guess what? They're going to come back and they might even invest more. Or they might bring a buddy who they didn't get down to last show, but guess what? Now they want to come in, but they have so much buy-in from their buddy and from you that they're going to throw in more. And I'm noticing that with this one. Like this one, I have way more on the pot. I was only able to give out $1,000 the last one, but for this one, we can give out 15, and that's done 3 matches, right? I may have another armbar bounty where someone throws in $50, whoever gives an armbar. Now that's over $2,000 that we're giving away. Um, but again, to kind of, I feel like I went on a tangent, but owning your audience, right? Knowing how to get them hyped, how to
And I
grow the
would say,
follow.
like, I know a lot of what I spoke about was from a business perspective, but I think it's actually even more important for athletes because for me, I've got like a very clear path from like contact to getting them into the email flows to then following up with a product. Whereas with athletes trying to make a name for themselves, it's like basically every tool you have is someone else's platform. Do you know what I mean? It's like, all right, I'm gonna start promoting myself. I'm gonna start promoting myself through Instagram. So that now means you have to play by Instagram's algorithm rules, which might not line up with what you are trying to do as an athlete. Or even like if you look at it like, okay, I want to make some money off instructionals, and not to bash BJJ fanatics because they're like kind of the OGs within the space, but if you're putting your instructional on Fanatics, you're renting space on their website for your instructional. So would it not be much better to get your audience from Instagram, push them onto an email list, set up your own Patreon, and then follow up with your instructional on your Patreon so you own the customers plus the product and you can funnel them into that loop. And what people don't realize is like, yeah, getting on a site like Fanatics or even like going viral on Instagram is great. But the minute they shift their priorities to another athlete, let's say, Craig Jones comes out with an instructional, okay, cool, that's the focus now. We're not going to promote your instructional, or Mark Zuck changes the algorithm and they're like, okay, we don't care about technique videos and you're the technique guy. All of a sudden your business is torpedoed. Do you know what I mean? But if you can match your product to an audience and figure out a way to get them and pull them out of these little kind of um, micro bubbles or like whatever you want to call Instagram, like networks, I guess, and put them into your own network and then foster that network, um, I think you're going to have a much more stable business brand or career as an athlete if you can figure that out. So that's been the
Uh-huh.
biggest thing I've learned this year, I think, for sure.
Yeah, and staying consistent. I think my biggest thing where it got me popping, but sometimes it's hard to be as consistent as I want to be because sometimes outside factors play a role into it. But that and consistency, I feel like those two things, like what you're saying, and then being consistently hitting that benchmark is going to help you blow up. And whether it's competing a lot, posting after every comp, posting after every training session, but it's hard for a real one to make it out here because
Seriously, man.
everyone's doing it. Everyone's doing it. You blink, you hit the refresh on Instagram, and there's like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other athletes who probably have more followers than you who compete also. So it's like you got to compete with those motherfuckers.
Yeah. And
You know
I
what I'm
think that
saying?
like that kind of could you bring that up because that leads on to the next thing I was going to say. Like the other big unlock for me with kind of building a business, and what I definitely tell my white belt business self is like you gotta figure out early on a point of differentiation. And then you've got to build like they refer to it as like building a moat around your business, which is basically like I have a competitive advantage, and that could be like the best designs, the best quality, the cheapest price, whatever it is. And then you figure out a way to make sure that you're always ahead of the competition so they can't get close or get in on your competitive advantage, and that's where the moat is. So for me, like one of the biggest kind of unlocks was I got lucky with my factory. And I think here in the West we have a habit of sort of like looking down our noses as overseas factories. And I would say, like, not to sound like a dick, but like for a good reason, because a lot of them are very inconsistent. The culture and the communication is different, so it's kind of like I still get my inbox flooded with factories from like Pakistan and China. Um, and it's like annoying because I'm like, bro, just like stop messaging me. Jesus Christ, like just give me a
Hello,
break.
sir. We are a
Yeah, help
manufacturer of
this.
XYZ.
I understand why they get a bad rep, but that doesn't mean that then when you do find one you work with, you treat them like a kind of shitty employee. For me, the biggest unlock was finding a factory that was medium size so they could handle decent volume, and they could handle like a lot of specific customizations. Because I'll tell you a little secret: a lot of the big gi companies, they basically have blank gis that are mass produced, and then the reason why they're mostly kind of patches on there is because they just take the blank gi, slap the patch on, or slap their woven label on, and now all of a sudden it's their own brand. But because the gis are mass produced, they're like dirt cheap. But what you're not going to get is like a custom tailored fit that is specific to that brand. Whereas I had a medium sized factory where they could do all that custom work for me, or they could change like a certain ribbing, or they could add like a lining on the lapel, or like mesh to specific areas, create new patterns, new styles, new fits. So it was like a true custom cut and sew factory. But because they were medium, they were mostly dealing with gym orders, which is kind of like a one and done. So when they got me as an account, I'm their only like or main consistent order. So they're basically like bend over backwards to make sure my product is good, and work with me to build these custom products. It was a real competitive advantage because I'm not a small business trying to shop from a massive factory in China where they don't really care about my 500 units. It's nothing to them. But then I'm not also dealing with a small factory that can't keep up and is just like putting out bad quality stuff because they don't have the right machines. And then viewing that factory relationship as a business partnership, not just to like, oh, I pay you, you give me a goods, because then it's led into other things. Now, one of the things I'm super excited for that we're launching is I basically told him like, look, I'm capped because I can only afford to buy so much inventory, which means I can only limit my drops to like two or three styles. And then also, I'm getting like demand from like wholesale customers, but I can't really fulfill them because I don't have the tools to kind of keep up with all these orders. So we're working out a way where I can basically like
Something.
use I
Sorry
could
about
basically like use the factory to fund my inventory buys up front, and then I pay them as we go. So one of the things they're doing for me now is they're basically giving me better payment terms. So I can essentially drop, five new designs to the website, and I'll sell them on a kind of like pre-order drop shipping slash made just in time model to where I'll sell them for a week, zero money up front, submit the orders to the factory. They'll make them and ship them back to me within a week. So it's like a 2 week production window. And then I only pay them after I've received the goods. So it's kind of like zero money up front for me, but I can drop five new designs to the website, which again gives me a competitive advantage because I can crank out new designs without putting strain on my business financials. Which, whereas another brand will have like more of a traditional setup where it's like, okay, I've got to pay 100% up front. So like every design I do, I have to commit to a minimum. I have to pay up front, which empties my account, depletes, the amount of money I have in there, which limits the amount of kind of things I can do in terms of advertising, marketing, and this, that, and the other. So, to sum up, I would just say like find that competitive advantage, and the same for athletes, not to keep going back to social media, but what's your angle? Do you know what I mean? Are you the funny guy? Are you the technique guy? Like J Flow is a good example. Like, his content is all very, very consistent, and it's kind of like around the same thing. And it's
just be
like,
sweeping motherfuckers left and right.
right, right, right. It's just like foot tripping people into oblivion, like getting a million highlight reels. But that's his competitive advantage. And it's like when you think of that kind of content, you go to that person, and then those guys have pretty good kind of ways of funneling people back onto their websites, into email funnels, to follow up with their own products. So yeah, kind of went on a tangent with that one. But, finding a competitive advantage, building a good relationship with your factory, and really leveraging them to help kind of invest in your growth. And a lot of that comes from them having faith in you too. So you kind of have to prove yourself a little bit. Have to treat them with respect, number one, and then you have to deliver some results too.
Exactly. The same for the athletes. White belt. Well, I tell this to my white belt self, even though I really wasn't looking for sponsors and things like that as a white belt. But for my other belts who are constantly asking, yo, Jay Rome's, how are you getting all these people to work with you? Mark just pretty much said it, but, just use what he said and apply it to your jiu-jitsu journey. Like, what can you offer these brands?
I just hit
Are
up
you
a white belt the other day asking if they wanted to collab, because I was like looking at the content. I was like, this is kind of cool. It's different. It's kind of engaging. It's funny. And I think there's definitely a fine line between being engaging and funny and not cringe or not kind of corny. But then sometimes the corny cringe stuff works because it kind of gets that rage bait. So it gets your reach. But yeah, I was like, I don't personally now, I don't give a fuck if you're a white belt, blue belt, world champion, nobody. It really depends on what kind of angle you have and what kind of content you have as to whether I think we can work together. And I mean, there's arguments for the other side too. Credibility of having world champions and top level people. And I'm sure if Nicky Rod came and said, "Oh, Rock Nation for free," I'd be fucking stupid to say
like,
no. Do you know what I mean?
like,
Right. So that's not to say that tactic doesn't work, but yeah,
like I said, that tactic works, but a lot of time, 9 times out of 10, it's just the same in sales, right? And I know this is a whole other subject, but people don't buy from who they trust. No, they don't buy it because they really like the product. They buy it because they trust you and they see where you're going and they want to work with you. So
yeah. I
for
mean,
those
especially
guys,
with jujitsu, not to like belittle what I'm doing or what we're doing. But I'm like, number one, we're rolling around with a bunch of sweaty people, so it's like it's not that glamorous. Do you know what I mean? And then number two, essentially, I'm selling you a lycra spandex skin tight T-shirt. Do you know what I mean? There's no like mystery to it. That's why sometimes when I see
chill,
these
chill,
like big
chill, because you
brands,
got these fresh shirts too,
yeah,
man.
yeah, 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 yeah. I try and make the designs a little better, but like sometimes when I see like these ads from these bigger brands, it's like the arts, preserved art, the gentle art swag, and then I'm like, bro, you're freaking talking out your ass, man. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I was in reverse close guard with some guy's ass in my face, and we were like playing footsie. You know what I mean? This is not the art. Like, come on, man. Like.
Here, Kiki over here just doing
Yeah,
slap.
yeah. Or like you're starting to hand fight with someone and you're just basically playing pat cake with them. I'm like, come on, man, it's not that serious.
But yeah, man. Well, look, this was a fun episode today, man.
It
Shouts
was,
to shouts to our boys ChatGPT for
yeah,
coming up with
ChatGPT
this.
for the win.
I'm joking. This was all up here, guys who are listening.
Yeah. These big ball heads, they got
Thank you.
knowledge in there.
There's no hair stopping us from thinking. It's a lot of thinking in there.
Yeah.
But this was a special Friday evening show. Mark, do you have any shout outs or anything that you want to make? I feel like I'm always doing the shout outs. I don't know if you have any shout outs or if you want to shout out maybe any future.
Yes, I'm supposed to be a brand owner. I'm supposed to have like a bunch of people, ready to rip off the dome. But nah, it's like honestly, it's like I did email blast to all of my subscribers the other day, basically asking how
I
can
saw
jiu
that. I was part
yeah,
of that.
how can jiu-jitsu brands better serve the community? And I got like so many replies, and it was super cool to see the responses. And overarching thing was, and where I'm going with this is like who to be thankful for is like basically they wanted to see brands invest more in like community building activities, so like giving kids access to jiu-jitsu and like investing in sort of not nobodies because that sounds bad, but like lower belts or like people that could benefit from jiu-jitsu but maybe don't have access to. And it got me to thinking that like, man, I got some names I can name, like the people that like took a chance and are like, oh, what's this new brand, let me buy it, it might be garbage, I don't know, but purchase that first rash guard. Those people are like the freaking MVPs. Like obviously Drew from day one, Rudy. I think Rudy, Matt Cornett, and there was another guy. I'm trying to remember my first ever customer
Who's
outside of
that?
my.
Who's that one dude? I never met him in person. Ant the Dom. I think he's from out your way. Ant lighter dude. He's from New York, but I think he don't live in New York no more.
Probably know the face. But yeah, those
He's
guys are the
always
ones.
tag.
Is what's tagging
You
me? Oh
got
man, I think I
Danny.
don't.
Don't forget Danny.
Yeah, Danny, my God, yeah, Danny, and like all of those people, I think are the ones that I'm always super grateful for, and would want to shout out, but there's too many of them. But it's like basically it's the community that builds these brands, and I think the brands need to start giving back. So I'm gonna figure out a way to do it. I'm kind of going completely off topic here, but like this is a future episode. One of the things I want to do is set up a jiu-jitsu scholarship where instead of sponsoring bigger athletes and maybe having like a big money contract with a upcoming star, is really put that money into a pot and then just basically like offer it up to gyms and say like, look, if you got a student that is struggling and maybe can't afford the membership or like needs new gear and just doesn't have the money, hit me up because I got like a little nest egg that I'm putting away, and I'll pay for their membership for a month and ship them a bunch of free gear, try and find more sponsorship in that regard. So I know that's not really a shout out. I don't know, just
Hey,
like,
that is a shout out, and honestly, I think that's actually pretty cool because I know there's a lot times are tough right now, bro. People are struggling, and
yeah,
sometimes, much as a lot of business owners, like jujitsu owners, wanna help out, but they still have bills to pay, so they can't really
right,
offer free membership. So what you're doing
right,
is
right,
pretty
right.
cool, bro. So like, I think that's cool, and I don't know how I can help. I'm just another broke jujitsu athlete who can maybe use a scholarship pockets, but
We can all be broke
no.
together. At least we're all happy.
This will be a life scholarship just
Right.
for breathing. But, no, seriously, I think that's pretty cool, man, and, whatever I can do to help push that.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
as
I'll
far
definitely
as
tag everyone in.
let's do it, and as
Yeah.
far as, shout outs from my end, I already did one earlier, Hollow Labs, shouts to them, they've been keeping me going for a while, just like you, I've been working with them for a while too. Nations Athletic, of course, always keeping me fresh on and off the mat. Home cooked meals, home cooked, I've been working with them for a few months now. I've been feeling good, looking good. You said I look jacked, which is great. What else? What else? Toke Folks, Knife Zoid, Stop, some of the best herb, and Toke Folks, some of the best herb out here in the East Coast. RZ Wellness, Laz, and Will. Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Josh, my tattoo sponsor, who got some of the best tattoos in the game, and Ramirez Paint and Bath. So if you guys need any type of remodeling, contracting, again, they do really good work. He's been a family owned and operated business for 15 years. Him and Nations are actually my first two sponsors.
Nice.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you as always. I think I tell you before the end of every show how much I appreciate you. But yeah, guys, we won't be this Sunday coming up. We won't have a show. I'm actually going away. But when we get back, we lock in. I told you earlier, April 3rd, I will be competing on UFC Fight Pass. I'm not going to say who just yet. He sent me a contract to sign, so I don't know if, I can even be saying shit like that. But UFC Fight Pass, I could say that April 3rd, your boy J Romes is back on it. Let's get this W. I didn't win the last tournament that just passed, but it is what it is. On to the next. So let's go.
So numero 6 in the box. That's it. We done.